You are in debt, so is your government. So are the banks. So is every major country on earth. Households owe. Corporations owe. Nations owe. The world owes 3 times what it produces in a year. And if those debts are paid, the global economy dies. Banks lose their assets. Pension funds collapse. Credit disappears overnight. Money itself contracts. How did this happen? And who exactly owns the bill? To understand it, we go back to 1694, to a war, an empty treasury, and the creation of a bank that rewired money. England, 1694. The country is fighting France. Its treasury is empty. The government's reputation is shaky. It has failed to repay lenders before. No one wants to risk another loss. Under the old system, borrowing was simple. Kings took loans. If they repaid, trust survived. If they defaulted, creditors absorbed the hit and moved on. Debt ended. The damage was contained. If you were a lender, you knew the risk ended with the loan. This time, something new is proposed. A group of merchants offers to lend the government a large sum, enough to fund the war, but the structure is different. The government will not repay the principal. It will pay interest every year instead, 8%, backed by its power to tax. To manage it, they form a new institution, the Bank of England. As a lender, you deposit your gold. The bank lends it to the government. The government promises an annual interest, and in exchange, you receive banknotes, claims, backed by that government debt, notes you can trade. The loan does not expire, nor does it get retired. It opens a door that would never close again. If you are holding those notes, you feel clever, safe, modern. You do not realize you have just tied your future to a government that will never fully be done borrowing. After 1694, Europe saw a subtle change. England does not collapse under debt. It grows instead. The government keeps borrowing. It keeps paying interest. And the system keeps functioning. If you're watching from another capital, you notice that the sky does not fall. Markets do not panic. The navy still sails. Other powers notice. They copy it. In 1716, France established the Banque Générale under John Law. By 1717 to 1720, it merged into the Mississippi Scheme, a state-backed monetary experiment. Throughout the early 1700s, the Dutch refined the bond market. They made debt tradable. Governments realized something dangerous. Permanent debt does not destroy them. It sustains them. It funds navies. It funds colonies. It funds expansion without demanding immediate sacrifice. You do not need the money today. You can borrow it from tomorrow. By the early 1700s, government bonds were no longer emergency tools. They became an administrative routine. War? Let us issue bonds. Infrastructure? Let us issue bonds. Budget gap? Bonds would rescue. If you can tax later, you can spend now. National debt stops being extraordinary. It becomes paperwork, and investors love it, because government bonds are backed by the taxation power. If you hold one, you are not betting on profit. You are betting on survival. As long as the state endures, the interest arrives. Regular, scheduled, predictable. Net becomes income. Income becomes tradable, and tradable becomes liquid, safe enough. And once entire financial markets are built around those bonds, default is no longer a clean break. It is a fracture that spreads. By the early 1800s, Europe was not just borrowing, it was entangled. The Napoleonic Wars ends in 1815. The debt does not. Britain's national debt exceeds 200% of its GDP. Other powers are not far behind. Wars were expensive. Armies ate daily. And if you're asking about the bonds issued to pay for them, they do not remain in place. A British consul sold in London might end up in Amsterdam, resold in Paris, pledged in Frankfurt, and referenced in Vienna. The paper starts moving faster than soldiers ever did. By 1820s, the Rothschild network spanned London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples. Couriers carry market news across borders. In a matter of days, capital follows. Debt now travels, and once it travels, it connects. By 1864, if you were a ruler and you defaulted. You were not just disappointing lenders. You were shaking banks in London. You were rattling investors in Paris. You were freezing credit in cities you had never visited. Your failure is now contagious, because sovereign debt is no longer just funding governments. It is sitting on balance sheets as prime collateral. It backs other loans and props up credit. It is a safe asset, the thing everything else leans on, until it is not. When debt becomes this widespread, a default is no longer a contained mistake. It is a structural event. By the mid-19th century, governments understood this clearly. Walking away is not just dishonor. It is financial self-destruction. Debt had changed again. Now, it is systemic. And once debt becomes systemic, you can never let it fail. Not because it is immoral, because it would break everything. By 1907, you are living in a world balanced on government bonds. They sit in bank vaults. They anchor balance sheets. They are believed to be safe. If you are a banker, they are your foundation. If you are an investor, they are certain, but there is still a ceiling. Governments can only borrow what someone else is willing to lend. And one day, that ceiling is tested. October 1907, you are watching copper magnate F. Augustus Heinz make a dangerous move. He believes he controls enough shares of United Copper Company, so he wants to corner the stock. If he is right, short sellers will be forced to buy from him at any price. He's wrong. The squeeze fails. The stock collapses, and the banks that finance the bet start to shake. On October 22nd, Knickerbocker Trust, one of the largest trust companies in New York, suspends operations. That is enough. If you are a depositor, you do not wait for explanations. You line up outside the bank. You know it might not open tomorrow. You grip your withdrawal slip tighter. All you demand is cash. So does everyone else standing in the queue. Withdrawals accelerate. Reserves shrink. Banks stop trusting other banks. Credit tightens. Markets slide. And suddenly, the debt holding the system together begins to suffocate it. There is no central authority to intervene. No central bank. No lender of last resort. So one man steps in, John Pierpont Morgan, the most powerful banker in America. He gathers the country's top bankers inside his Manhattan library and forces them to commit their own money to rescue failing institutions. Millions of dollars are pledged overnight. The panic slows. Not because the system is stable, because one private financier decides it must survive. And that realization unsettles Washington. If one man must rescue the financial system, then the system has serious cracks. 3 years pass. November 1910. A private rail car leaves New Jersey. Destination: Jekyll Island, off the coast of Georgia. On board, Senator Nelson Aldrich, executives from the largest New York banks, men closely tied to Morgan's financial circle. For 9 days they draft a plan, not to eliminate debt, not to reduce borrowing, to ensure the next panic does not depend on a single individual. In 1913, the Federal Reserve Act became law, and debt changes again. Now, when the government issues bonds, there is a guaranteed buyer, the central bank, and it does not buy gold sitting idle in a vault. It buys by creating reserves. If you are a commercial bank, those reserves appear on your balance sheet. In exchange, government debt moves to the central bank. New money enters circulation. The government issues bonds. The Federal Reserve purchases them. Money expands. Debt no longer depends on existing capital. It helps create it. And once borrowing can manufacture its own demand, the natural ceiling dissolves. Permanent became systemic. Systemic became expandable. And expandable begins to look a lot like infinite. If you have liked this video so far, hit subscribe. By 1944, the war was not finished, but the outcome is no longer in doubt. Europe is drained, its factories bombed, its treasuries hollowed out. Britain, once the financial centre of the world, is buried under debt, approaching 250% of its entire economy. For 2 centuries, the pound had anchored global trade, ships sailed, commodities cleared, and empires settled accounts in sterling. Now Britain cannot even stabilise its own currency. So in July 1944, Delegates from 44 nations gathered in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The war still rages overseas. But inside that conference room, the conversation has already moved ahead. They are not debating battles. They are designing the monetary order that will follow them. The question is, what will the world trust next? The answer becomes just as simple. Currencies will anchor to the US dollar, and a dollar will anchor to gold. $35 per ounce. Quietly, the reserve center shifts from London to Washington. But the deeper shift is not geographic. It is structural. Europe will need dollars to rebuild, to import machinery, food, fuel, and capital goods. And dollars do not circulate globally unless the United States sends them out. So, how does it send them out? Through deficits, through lending, through issuing treasury bonds that foreign governments and central banks can hold as reserves. If Europe wants liquidity, it accumulates US debt. If central banks want stability, they hold the US treasuries. American government bonds become the foundation of global reserves. Debt becomes international infrastructure. The world rebuilds on top of it. And once global stability depends on your debt supply, the incentives change. If the world needs dollars, you must provide them. If it holds your bonds, you must issue them. Expansion becomes an obligation. And once the system depends on a steady flow of new debt, the pressure to create more of it never truly disappears. For a while, it works. The dollar holds to gold. Other currencies hold the dollar. Trade expands. Reconstruction accelerates. But stability requires something uncomfortable. The world needs dollars. And the only way dollars leave the United States is through spending that exceeds earnings. Deficits become a necessity. Treasury bonds accumulate overseas. At first, no one complains. Liquidity is welcome. Then the 1960s stretch on. War spending rises. Domestic programs expand. Dollars spread outward faster than gold flows inward. Foreign central banks begin counting. They hold mountains of paper. America holds a limited supply of gold. The imbalance grows visible. France acts first. It requests metal instead of promises. Others follow more quietly. Gold leaves the vaults. Confidence tightens. August 1971. President Nixon closed the gold window. Convertibility ends. The dollar floats. From that moment forward, restraint takes on a different form. Gold no longer limits issuance. Trust does. 2 years later, oil prices surge. The United States reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia. Oil will trade in dollars. Energy demand now reinforces currency demand. Countries that need oil need dollars. Countries that need dollars accumulate treasuries. American debt embeds itself in global trade. The arrangement looks durable, but beneath it, leverage is building. During the 1970s, governments across the world borrowed heavily in dollars. The money seems plentiful. Rates seem manageable. They assume both will last. They will not. By 1979, the system appears steady. Markets function. Trade flows. Debt circulates. But inflation inside the United States is running above 10%. The dollar weakens. Confidence thins. The new Federal Reserve Chairman, Paul Volcker, decides the erosion has gone far enough. He does not adjust rates. He shocks them. Interest rates surge from around 11% to nearly 20% in less than 2 years. Credit tightens instantly. If you're borrowing in dollars, your cost of survival just doubled. Throughout the 1970s, governments across Latin America had borrowed heavily in US currency. Money was cheap. Liquidity was abundant. Growth looked inevitable. Mexico accumulated tens of billions in obligations. Brazil did the same. Argentina followed. They assumed they would refinance when needed. Then rates spike. Interest payments swell faster than export revenues. Servicing the debt begins to consume entire national budgets. By August 1982, Mexico can no longer meet its payments. Under earlier systems, that would mean default. Creditors absorb losses. Markets reset. Pain is localized. This is no longer a contained system. Major American banks are deeply exposed. Mexico stops paying. Balance sheets in New York fracture. Traders watch screens. Officials hold emergency calls. No one wants to be the first to say the word default. The IMF intervenes. not to erase the debt, to extend it. New loans are issued, so old loans continue to be serviced. Relief comes with conditions. Government spending is cut, state industries are privatized, markets are open, the obligations remain. They are reorganized, rolled forward, and something fundamental shifts. A country that cannot pay does not leave the system. It is refinanced back into it. Debt changes form again. It is no longer temporary, no longer merely systemic, no longer simply expandable. Now it is inescapable. Look where you are now. Global debt has crossed $300 trillion, roughly 3 times everything the world produces in a year. The United States alone carries debt exceeding 120% of its economy. Interest payments approach levels once reserved for wartime, and yet the system is functioning because it has to. But history has seen this structure before. In the 1500s, Spain financed its empire with silver and debt. It defaulted repeatedly. In the 1600s and 1700s, the Dutch built the most sophisticated bond market in Europe. War stretched it beyond its limits. For over 2 centuries, Britain dominated global trade. After 2 world wars, its debt reached nearly 270% of GDP. The pound lost its reserve status. Every reserve currency follows a rhythm: innovation, expansion, overextension, and finally, adjustment. The dollar became dominant in 1944. It is now more than 80 years into that role. Its share of global reserves has fallen from around 70% in 2000 to under 60% today. Foreign ownership of US treasuries has declined. Alternative payment systems are being discussed. New blocs are experimenting with settlement outside the dollar. None of this means collapse tomorrow, and transitions are slow. Britain's decline took decades, but the pattern is visible. Debt does not destroy empires overnight. Loss of confidence does. The world is in debt, and it cannot unwind until it breaks itself. The system was built this way: permanent, global, inescapable. The only variable left is time. How long do you think it lasts? Comment your thoughts, and share this with someone who still thinks debt does not matter. History does not just repeat, it rhymes. So make sure you are listening for the next Money Echoes. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.